namaskar and welcome to this session. Um, let's start with everybody here has done this before, so let's start with 10 minutes of silence just to try and center ourselves. I'll keep the time and then we'll continue on our conversation. Right. So, all right, here we go. let's come out of it slowly. Okay, wonderful. Amen. Was it better today?
Yes, yes. I Yes, the racing thoughts were less and was able to, you know, concentrate or, let them come and go quicker.
Good. So, have you all been practicing? So, let's say we have these conversations, every 2 weeks, and then during those 2 weeks post before the next one, um, do any of you practice even sitting in silence or contemplating on what we discussed during our sessions? Um, Anybody, or just, and it's okay. There's no right answer. I mean, you can just say, look, we come here, we have a 1.5 hour session, and then we get back to our daily lives. Uh, but even this 1.5 hours is good because it reinforces. So there's something that keeps happening at the back end.
Yeah.
It's like your computer, right? There's a processing going on always at the back end, even though at the front, something else is going on. Sorry, Pete, you were saying something.
Yes, I do think a lot about the non-duality and the meaning it gives me a different things. Even before I could start today, it has a more powerful unifying force actually. Uh, Not for just for ourselves, for the whole world. That unifying force is not properly told to the public. The unity, the whole purpose of life itself is we're all born individual, but we live in a social, we are social animal in society. At the end, we all become unified. So this three stage of life, at the end of the life, after the life, again we are unified. If this is properly put together, why the hell we are not unifying when we are living, and after death only we want to unify? And it is not only spirituality point of view, or people may call religious, but I call it as a science. It is the ultimate science, which every scientist, every philosopher, everybody tried to discover it, starting from Buddha to Shankaracharya to Raman Maharshi, and even most modern scientists and science today with the Webb's telescope, James Webb's telescope, discovering the true nature of the universe that is hidden in this non-duality.
Correct.
That is what I feel.
Good. Okay. So good. You've come a long way since we started this conversation, right? About
Yeah.
6 months you traveled to various
Yeah.
places, looked for
So,
answers.
yeah.
Um,
I exchanged an email with you, and I refined that my own questions and my own thoughts. Every time I touch that one, I am refining it.
yeah.
Uh,
So so did you understand the reply that was given to you?
yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Good. So I think today's conversation, we want to continue on non-attachment. So how many of you actually thought about what we discussed last time on non-attachment? And I'm going to try and see if I can explain this a little bit more differently. Um, Maybe by what I experience, or have experienced over my last 10 years, and maybe let's see if I can explain a little bit differently for everybody to understand. So I think the crux of what we discussed last time, and this is the crux of all religious and spiritual teaching is the basis of false identification, right? That is the sum of all teachings. And what that means is that the notion or the idea that there is a separate individual entity, whether it be Ashish or Gabe or Pete, um, that has actual existence with all the characteristics, features, free will, the doership, the choice, control. This false notion, or identification with this false notion, is the cause of um, all the confusion um, that comes from daily living. So when I started out, I was at the same place um, where most of us are, right? And my belief in my own individuality, and I was in control of my own destiny, and I had to do X, Y, and Z. Um, that changed over time, and it just didn't change by reading the first book or listening to the first satsang, because this whole concept, for it to basically shake you from within, to let go of this strong identification which has happened over time, and probably over lifetimes, if you believe in reincarnation or karma or whatever, then is so strong, this force that we call self-preservation, because without that, creation is not possible. Without this opposing force, which is outward facing, which basically preserves this idea that we are an individual, we have all these characteristics like we discussed last time. We have these attachments, these relationships, these roles, these identities that we uh, play with each day, each moment. Without that uh, being strong, this this game of life is not possible. But as the understanding started to set in, and as I started to practice certain things that previous masters have, or the teachings, whether you call them religious or scriptural or uh, you know individual master teachings, as I started to practice certain things that they had mentioned, what started to happen is kind of, you can call it a process of, you know um, I would call it the identification or the non-identification process, but it's equal to, like, trying like a split, like one, this feeling started to split into two. And where this feeling started to split into two is that I started to feel within that there's not one but two kind of feelings within me. One feeling is of silence. One feeling is of um, this constant calm that's within. Um, and then there was still the surface level emotions and fluctuations that we're having. Now, at one point during the process, what was happening is that even though I could feel the silence, but my fluctuations were still there, and I was identifying. So I was still reacting in a way to those fluctuations, to those emotions and the relationships, and whatever was coming through that. But as practice became more and more, and as it became stronger and deeper, what I started to feel is that the silence started to prevail more than the surface fluctuations. And even though that the fluctuations were still coming, they were coming at a more or a less frequent level. But and what was happening is that the calmness was now, set in more and more. So my identification with the silence and the calmness over time started to become more stronger than my identification and the fluctuations and the reactions to the fluctuations. And as time went on, and this became deeper, a time came when the silence basically became the foundation of my living, and the fluctuations became, non-relevant. They had lost their relevance. So even today, if there is any fluctuation, though they are, very minimal, but even if they are there, there is really no relevance given to those fluctuations. So what that entails is, if I try and explain it, is like there is this silence, deep silence within, which is constant calm. And then there seems to be a functional entity, called Ashish, which is now still has, the characteristics of Ashish, but the identification or the attachment to the functional Ashish is not there anymore. So whatever Ashish is doing or not doing, is saying or not saying, has got no identification or relevance to the silence within. And that is, I think, I don't know, does that make sense? The way I'm explaining? Because what that has done has now created a complete non-attachment to the character or role called Ashish. So this silence, which is here, is not identified to Ashish anymore. So it has absolutely no effect whatsoever on whatever is going on to this functional entity called Ashish. So now comes the question is, but then, Ashish, are you saying that there is non-duality, but then what is, so here, let me explain that. So the notion of duality has to remain for creation, for the notion of creation to be valid or to exist, just the notion, an idea. Now, non-dualism means that this silence, which is at the bottom, at the foundational level, which is not changing come what may, is the same for all functional entities. But when you are abiding in the silence, and now, it's no more an intellectual exercise. As that, we are on this call, then the relevance of duality or non-duality also has lost its actual relevance. There's no relevance, because to silence, if it's constant for everybody, if it's permanent for everybody, it's the same, then it doesn't matter whether there is duality or non-duality. This thing is not changing. So all the scriptures, when they say that your original nature is, is in itself pure, it's complete, it's whole, it's silent and still, that is what they're talking about. That for everybody, when you go deep within, when you practice or when you understand or when you abide in the silence, over time, this silence becomes your natural, which was your original state, becomes your natural abiding, position, while you are still interacting through your functional entity. I'll stop there to see if you understood this differentiation.
Just a comment. I like this explanation, to be honest with you. Um, it is uh, yeah, I grasped it better than last 2 weeks ago about the attachment aspect of it. But at the same time, so we are talking about, yeah, there is the core for all of us about this um, silence or calmness, and it depends on the functional Ashish or the functional uh, Ayman or Anil or whoever, right? This uh, this connection between the two, it could varies, right? Between the functional uh, uh, Ayman, because still the functional Ayman, the the silence and the calmness and the core is the same for all of us, for all human being. When we reach to that level,
It's the same. The only
the
difference
same,
is, yeah, it's the same across for everybody. Beings,
everybody,
plants,
E-
roads,
exactly. So
you
all the
name it,
same.
all the
But
same.
the functional Ashish is different from the functional Ayman, from the functional Gabe, and it depends how far we are on this road to reach that core foundation or beliefs or understanding of this calmness and the silence. Is that,
That's
is
correct.
that?
That's
Mhm.
correct. So practice. So now you've come that you've understood this thing, right? Now, the functional entities, if the core is the same, and these are just functional entities, right? Or the idea that the same core is now, identifying with n number of functional entities to continue the drama of life, right? Then the only goal, right, or the purpose becomes for this original to realize that the identification with a functional entity is nothing, just a pure identification. The functional entity really, has lost its relevance once you realize that, these are all one and the same at the core. So this part of realization of, stopping to identify, with this functional entity is what this whole process is about. The idea of, of letting go, or this silence to stop identifying eventually, is what we call, nirvana or self-realization, or, enlightenment or emancipation. That's all this is. Now, you're correct in saying that it takes time, right? Somebody is at some place, somebody's. So this whole process of non-identification is what is the purpose of life.
And just to follow up on, I think what you said, right? I mean, at least this is my understanding from what you said, that for the creation to work, the concept of creation, you need the functional Ashish and the functional Ayman.
Yeah, because once all of that dissolves, if there are no functional entities, there's no creation.
That's what I'm saying. So exactly. So what I'm saying, it is a needed, um something is required to have these functional entities, right? Or no?
So when you say something is required, explain, elaborate
No,
on that.
no, I mean, it's just what you said, right? For the creation for us to realize the creation, we have to have this functional entities, whatever it is, right? Ashish, Ayman, plant, cow, whatever, right? We need to have this functional entity. Otherwise, how are we going to realize creation?
Correct. You're correct in your understanding. Yes, you're correct.
Okay.
And what happens is that it's a circular process, right? So when you come to the knowing, at that point you realize that this whole process of creation, sustenance, and then destruction, and this process going around is nothing but a dream. But as long as you're identified with the functional entity, you have to go through the process to come to the realization. Only when you come to the realization and you experience that realization as a lived reality is when everything else falls flat in there. So you have to go through the process to come to the realization that there was the starting point, that there was nothing to realize. So the whole game of life, this whole process is nothing but to come to that realization. And that is what is called nirvana or self-realization. That there was nothing to realize from the beginning. But you have to go through the game of life to
Mhm.
come to that realization, which was the original. So I went through the same process. I started from, you know, starting point of being identified with my individuality, going through all the emotions and, whatever events happened that triggered, you know, me to look somewhere else for answers. Then went through the same things of researching and finding, where I could get the answer, because I was not able to get answers, in my daily routine and my daily life for the answers I was looking for. And as I looked and searched, I found somebody who pointed me to somewhere else to look for answers. And they said, look, if you go within, the answers are there. It's just that you have to go within. So till there, they were also saying the same thing, which I'm telling you today, that there's really, your original starting point is silent and still, which is permanent in X, Y, and Z. And, but I could not understand what they were saying. I was like, wait a minute, what does this mean that they're saying? And the mind was not able to grasp that concept. I'm here, I live, I've got a family, I got business, I got this, I got problems, I got emotional, roller coaster going on, 10,000 things to do. How can it be, I am a self-made man. I did this, I did that, right? All of that. And then here somebody was telling me that, wait a minute, all of this is nonsense. The starting point is silent and still, which is permanent. It's pure, it's complete, it's whole. It does not require any validation. It does not change. Everything else on top of that is an appearance and and a disappearance within that. So I couldn't grasp the concept. So I said, okay, but at least there was somebody telling me, wait a minute, there is a answer to your questions. There was an answer to all my problems. There was an answer. And what they were saying is that this solution, there's a solution that can answer and resolve all the questions and all your problems. So as I started to go through the process, as I started to practice and try to build, practices of my own around it, as I went through the process, I came to the realization, and a lived realization, which I explained to you, that really my original state of being, or my original nature, is the silence and stillness within, which has got absolutely no effect whatsoever on whatever is happening to Ashish or to the world around Ashish. This thing is not changing at all. And this whole thing is really nothing but a dream, a dream, right? But I had to go through the process of coming to this realization. So today, I am teaching the same thing as a lived experience of what, our scriptures and previous prophets and previous masters and have been teaching, for time immemorial, from the beginning of when time actually as a concept was created. And that's so you have to. There is no other way, which is why every scripture says one last thing, that this is a direct experience. Right experience is a direct experience. So there is no way your mental capacity or the instrument of intellect, and the mind will only take you uh, to a limited boundary, because it has created a boundary. It operates within, um, within a certain construct. So in order to understand anything outside of that construct, you have to let go of the boundary, which is itself a concept. It's an imaginary boundary, which is what is called individuality, which has been created. And we are talking about something which is, unlimited outside. So you have to allow the process, but you have to start somewhere. And that's where these practices are important, which is why the 3-4 path, which has been created, is, the critical part, or the bridge between right understanding and right experience, are these practices that have to be done, whether they are self inquiry, whether they are non attachment, whether they are obedience in silence, or in I am, whether they are, surrendering. At the end of the day, they're all interlinked, and they all will make you experience this thing as a lived experience. Just the way you experience your daily life today as this individual entity, uh, you will have direct experience. So, this gap, which is of this right practice, must be done, because you can understand as much intellectually, but if that understanding is not practiced into your lives, then you cannot experience this. Until you don't experience, your realization or the recognition or the remembrance of your original nature does not happen, because you're constantly identifying with this functional entity. I'll stop there for questions.
Uh, I didn't want to interrupt you during you know, when you were talking, but now it's kind of slipped my mind. Um, uh, so you said earlier about how it's just a comment, maybe it's a semantic. Uh, you commented and you said that the state of being calmness, the calm and the silence, and doesn't have any impact on the functional entity. Is that what you said? Something like that?
Other way around. Um,
Exactly. This is what I wanted to say. Yeah, it's
yeah,
it's the it's the functional entity, the Ashish as a functional thing does not have an impact on that baseline.
that's correct. That's good.
Okay. And yeah, there was a word that you said that I did not understand. You said something. You were listing few different things about, you know, inner peace, calmness, this, that, and then you said something that I did not get. Anyway,
Well,
I'm sure we'll
uh,
hear it again.
yeah. Plus, remember, Eamon, these all of these sessions are recorded. So,
Mm,
and we have the foundation has the YouTube channel. So within a week or so, we try and, you know, put these up. So all the satsangs which I've had, I think there are now almost 80, 90 videos up there. They're all there for people to refer back to, or, you know, anybody to watch. So if you missed anything within a week or 10 days, this video will be available for you to, you know, refer to anytime
Yeah,
you want.
yeah, I will do that. And the other thing, at the start of the session, you said something about, do you guys practice any of this stuff? Do you? So, what is it that you're asking? Is it that, I mean, I don't know if anybody does anything, but I don't.
Yeah. So
You
for
know,
example, you know, like today, right now, what I've said, what I've explained, you know, you need to contemplate and try and, um, you know, bring that in your daily life. So non-attachment, right? If there's an emotion that pops up, right? Do you pause for a moment and try and remember your original, you know, state of, you know, your original nature? Your original nature, if it's silent and still, um, then, and that's not being affected, then the question arises: what is that is having this effect, and what is it that is actually reacting? Who is reacting? Who is feeling these things, right? So that is a practice of self-inquiry. So with each thought, with each emotion, with each event, if you can, before it gets to a point where, you know, you have now gone with the flow, um, if you can stop it and ask the question, then, you know, you will find that your reactions to a lot of things don't happen. They just, you know, just dies out there, right? So, and the more you practice this, the more you feel that you, the more calmness you feel. That's what you need to start feeling more than feeling the you know, the daily fluctuations of emotions, right? So, so these practices is what I say, like, you know, can do you take this, like today's conversation, will you now spend time maybe every morning to think about this before you start your day? Look, today I'm going to go out. This is what I discussed with, you know, with Ashish on this thing. He said, look, there is something within me, which is my original nature, which is silent and still. Let me see if today I can hold on to that silence and stillness. Let me see if I can find it first and then hold on to it as much as possible. Um, Let me see how much during my day can I remember that my original nature is actually silent and still, and see if I can stay in that stillness as long as possible. So these things, as you contemplate more and more, allow you to let go of a lot of things. So if you keep remembering with every event that, look, this is not my, this is just the functional entity playing its role, this is not me, then what happens is automatically non-attachment starts to kick in. The more you let go, letting go is nothing but non-attachment, and letting go is also called surrender. So these are just play of words, but what you start feeling is that when an event happens or something happens, even though you may have reacted, but you're not attached anymore to that reaction. It doesn't affect you the way, you know, things would have affected you previously. You don't think about it more. You don't analyze that, you know, reaction anymore. You don't, you know, it was a functional entity that played its role and it had to happen that way, so it did. You also know that, you know, if you did not react to something, then, you know, that's how it was meant to be. So there's this non-attachment with your functional entity starts kicking in. So when I say, you know, do you practice these things, right? Means it took me 10 years. It wasn't that I listened and then voila, it happened. I practiced for 10 years, every day, every moment, you know, and it started with, you know, doing it, you know, maybe 30 minutes, you know, 45 minutes, you know, in a day. But over time, it became, you know, more of this and less of now. That does not mean that my, things did not happen to me, or things don't happen to me today. I still come and play pickleball with you guys. I still come to, you know, events. I still, have, family drama at home. I've got two boys, right? There's still some amount of consulting work that I have to do, to pay the bills, because the bills do come through as well. But it's all now seen as happening within this, dream drama that's playing, as Ashish is a functional entity. I was telling Anil the other day that, when I started in 2016, for the first 3 years, I'm not an avid reader. I was never an avid reader. I could not stop reading. I could not get enough. I read, you know, probably 70 to 100 books and these were not light fictional books. These were, scriptural texts. These were like thick books, and I couldn't get enough of it. In the last 2 months, I'm not able to stop writing. And I've written, I've made a whole, we're now looking at publishing these writings. And in the last 2 days, I've created a portfolio. And it looks like I've written about 150 books and booklets. So now, having said that, it's this functional entity. To me, at the end of the day, from this original nature, it has no relevance whether I write or don't write, whether I have these sessions or don't have these sessions. But the functional entity has to play its role of now. So that's great. At this point, I'm in that phase of writing. So I'm writing down and documenting everything. I'm trying to explain different teachings through the threefold path and through the lessons that I've learned, right? So I have all these, you know, projects coming through, but there's no attachment to it. It's happening for for whatever purpose it's happening. So these are the things when I talk about Amen is, you have to take these and practice these things out, right? So there's a whole set of practices as well that we've discussed over the last, 6 months or so, which is part of the threefold paths right practice. Those are the practices that now have to be implemented. We did a few of those during the retreat. As more and more, we discuss, I will discuss those practices as well in these sessions. But, I would tell them to you, but at the end of the day, you have to do them.
I just have a comment on what you said that it caught my you said that the past couple of months you can't stop writing and things happening for whatever purpose is happening. Isn't that we would be like isn't that like something uh, in our nature to know why this is happening?
So in
I
reality,
mean,
nothing, in reality, in silence, actually nothing's going on,
yeah, but what I'm saying, you said,
right?
I'm
So,
just commenting on a statement that you made.
right,
You said that, you know, now you have been writing and, you know, for whatever purpose, this is what's happening and for whatever purpose or something like that, you said, right?
right.
So, so, but isn't that we human being, we look at events and because of our whatever it is, our functional entity, our whatever it is, we want to know, we are curious as to why this happened, right? For whatever purpose. You said for whatever purpose, now you are writing. It doesn't matter whether you are right or not, whether you read or not, whether you are attending sessions or not, whether you're going to pickleball or not. But isn't that we are curious? Isn't that in our nature to know what the purpose of things?
So whose nature?
Uh,
Who wants to know?
The functional Ashish, the functional Ayman.
The functional layman has no control over it. In reality, it's somebody's imagination. Whatever that, whoever the imagination, whoever is imagining this, the functional entity. This is again the identification process. The functional entity is like a character. As long as you believe in that character to be have substantial existence, you have this question that look, this functional entity wants to know what is the purpose, what is the no. The driver is the silent and stillness. This is what drives. And there's something that appears in the middle, which, is called consciousness, or what we call that, how is this silent and stillness actually even, imagining these things? Because you say on one side it's silent and stillness. So there is a small bridge in the middle that we call, I am, or awareness, or consciousness, right? It appears, it first becomes aware of itself and then starts dreaming. Functional entities have no substantial existence. They are only there as instruments. It's like a little child playing with toys and creating those toys to do certain functions, to play his own dream drama. Now, those toys, no, the toys don't say, I'm curious to know what my purpose is.
All right.
So and again, I know these are abstract, like these are, like we talk about, these are concepts, but you have to be able to see them, um, or experience them, these events, the way I'm talking about, to be able to validate what I'm saying. And that will only come by practicing. I could have these conversations for the next 50 years, 100 years. These conversations have been happening for from the beginning of time, but only a few who have actually practiced have experienced. And this is where most of us, um, you know, now the circular argument, when you come to me, then it's like everything is happening on its own. So, but it's till you don't come here, you don't, so I have to have these conversations uh, to bring you back to the circular till you come to the realization that, look, there was nothing needed anyways for me to do. It's happening on its own. So at some point it will, this consciousness that has created its own dream drama will eventually come to the realization that it's a dream drama, come to its own awareness, and then eventually dissolve into the silence and stillness. But this is the conundrum of life. Nobody can answer it. You can only experience it.
Um, Namaste, Guruji.
Good
Thank you
morning.
for
Good
good
morning.
morning. It's a beautiful word you gave today, and functional, functional individuality. So, yeah, when I joined the session, I came with a question. Just a small incident I'll tell you, and it is actually answered, my quest. So, what happened yesterday was that I was angry at my son. And I used to feel that because I'm meditating, I should not feel angry. I should not feel anger. So over a thing like he was on I mean, he was on playing games late night till 2:33, and we had a party. His friends had to come home. 10 of his friends were invited, and we shared a room together. So he didn't let me sleep, and I was not able to sleep, and he was playing. And then I was really mad. And then I was thinking, oh my God, all of my meditation has gone waste because here I am really, really mad at him, you know.
Yeah.
So now, thank you. That was my functional individuality. And that
Yeah,
reaction was valid at that time.
correct. Good.
Because this functional individuality had to get up in the morning and prepare for his 10 of his friends, and do all the things without much of help. So yeah, thank you. I
But
hope
you have,
my understanding is fine over
yes,
here.
it is
Is it?
correct. It is correct. And um, soon, as you practice this more, now remember this functional entity, it's not, you can't, eventually it has to be unconditional non-attachment. Like it has to be complete non-attachment, because you should not use this concept to suit your own agenda. That, look, I'll use the functional entity idea for when it is against me, but when for me, then I will not, then it's me, I did it, right? Like I did something great, so it was all me, I did it, right? So it has to be a complete non-attachment, and that from this practice will only come. So right now you've intellectually understood it, and you have used that intellectual understanding in your practice by letting go of what you were holding on to, which was the reaction and analysis of what you did, right? You got angry, or go, good Lord, my meditation, what have I done? Blah, blah, blah. Why should I have, should I have been angry at him? Should I have handled it this way? Should I handle? So all of that has no relevance the moment you have let go of that. Look, it was what it was. It had nothing to do with me. It is just the functional entity, and your son also is a functional entity. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is that there's only one, right? It's silent and stillness, or this pure consciousness is one and the same for all. So everybody on both sides are just functional entities, right? So you will come to that realization even later on, that what your son is doing, right, is also his functional entity playing his role,
Mhm.
you know, during, what is going on, right? So as that also sets in and you become non-attached, your reactions to a lot of things will also change, and your um, uh, your analysis, all of this changes. So your parenting style will also start changing. You'll become more tolerant and compassionate towards what he's doing, because you will realize that, look, he also is not in control of his own actions as well, just the way you are not in control of your actions and reactions.
Mhm. Can I ask one more question? Rather, two.
Yeah.
So, one, so continuing with this parenting style. So, as parent, we can see, now we feel that we can see that we want our children to eat healthy, to sleep in time, to exercise, so that they are able to avoid, they are able to maintain healthy bodies. And sometimes, like oftentimes, they are not able to understand that. They do whatever they do, they eat whatever they eat, and then um, so how should we take this? I mean,
So, so today, like, so you have to be an observer, right? As I said, when you truly experience this observation, this idea of this thing, silent and stillness, only observing and witnessing everything,
mhm,
then you just let it be, whatever is going on. And even at that time, if as a parent Poonam reacts to something, right,
mhm,
it's okay, it's all right. The issue is
mhm,
not with your reaction. The issue is your analysis of that reaction and then holding on to it, which continues to keep you, bound within the
mhm,
functional entity.
Right.
So this is what has to be understood and broken. That
Mhm.
whatever is going on, whether you react or you don't react, has got nothing to do with your original self.
Right.
Whatever is happening in the dream, there's
Mm.
nothing to do with you.
Mm.
Your original self is silent and still watching.
Right.
This is what non-attachment actually is to
Mm.
non-attach yourself with the identification or the
Mm.
idea of an individual self. This is what
Right.
true non-attachment means. Everything else is only a subset of non-attachment. It those one at a time, what we discussed last time, neti neti, is only a process or a practice of coming to this final idea of non-attachment. And this final idea of non-attachment is nothing but surrender. Because once you've come to this realization and you've experienced this realization and it becomes your lived reality, then automatically unconditional surrender happens. You don't hold on to anything. There's nothing to hold on to. It
Right.
is the funny part is, which is why if you ask any master who had this realization experience and you ask them the first thing what they did, they said, all we did had a hearty laugh and we had a cup of tea. Because you are attached and you're involved and you're worried about something which is imaginary.
Mm. Mm.
An imaginary thing is imagining something, and the identification has got you all worked up and worried about whether I'm a good parent or a bad parent, whether I'm doing the right thing or whether I'm doing the wrong thing, whether this is right or wrong. uh, you know Judging, opinions, dogmas, fears, anger, emotions, these are all wrongly identified with. They have no meaning and relevance whatsoever.
Right. Thank you. So my another question, which is again linked, the practice. Guruji, you told, sorry, I've missed a couple of sessions, but then you did mention about once we practice Kriya meditation uh, by Paramahansa Yogananda ji, and I have also practiced sometimes Kriya meditation. So they used to do it like Hong Saw. You must be aware about it.
Yes.
Can we replace Hong Saw with Om Shanti? Because
Yeah, you
lately I
can.
started
No
doing
problem.
Om Shanti.
So when you do Hong Sao, in Hong Sao it
Mm,
was Hong Sao, right? In, out,
mm.
correct?
Yes, yes,
Right? So Om, now
right,
you can do
right.
Om Shanti, right? Like
Mm,
I am Kriya that I had to reword it to something. So I called it I am. But at the end of the
mhm.
day, even that has to go away. Remember, you
Yes.
have to just abide in silence. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
all practices need to dissolve into unconditional surrender.
Okay.
The culmination of all practices
Mm,
is unconditional surrender. And what that means is what I just explained to you is the realization that there is nothing going on, there's nothing to be attached or hold on to. For everything is just a play. So
mm,
that unconditional surrender, that's what bhakti yoga means. That's what surrender means. That's what devotion, Advaita devotion means. That there is really complete surrender to
mhm.
the silence and stillness within, because that is the only reality. Everything else built on top of the silence is fictional.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, so we are at 11:18. For another 15 minutes. Do we want to practice something? You want to practice I am Kriya or something? Or do you want any more questions?
We have many questions, but a lot of terminologies are used, and we need to go more detailed, but they're all valid terminologies. Maybe this session is not enough for this. But in
Yeah.
short, I understood we are pursuit of oneness. That is what we are heading to. It looks like that. And that is where non-duality comes in. Um, Now, the silence and identification, non-attachment, in reference to those things, we need to go a little more once
Correct.
again,
Yes.
because I feel this attachment and non-attachment. The gap between this is what is holding us attachment sometimes when we have to do non-attachment, kind of a force, which is a kind of a gravity, which is coming to eliminate that one is also uh, it's
Yeah. Them oppose. Yeah. So that too, like when you talk
yeah,
about scientifically, right?
yeah,
You are basically one force acting as two.
yeah. So that in between that force itself is a temporary kind of things,
Yeah.
which
So
which
this notion of two forces
yeah,
is only an idea, is a notion.
yeah. So to
There's
remove
only
this,
an appearance of two forces.
right,
And all you have to do is, in a simple way, is to realize that there
uh-huh,
are no two forces. There's no force whatsoever.
right, yeah. That binding force, if we remove it, probably will have more awakening.
Yeah. So this whole idea, which is why we call this as false knowledge, because this opposing force will not go away. This is where when you had said that the merging of the I, there
Mm,
is no merging of I. It is only a removal of false knowledge or ignorance that there is actually an I in the first place, that there is actually an opposing force in the first place.
right.
That is what is removed. By the
Right.
removal of that, the
Mm,
notion or the idea of this individual or this force goes away. So, what is removing is that false knowledge, not the removal of this functional entity. Because, as Eamon was saying, there is no functional entity, which is why the example given in the scriptures of the rope and the snake, as
mhm,
long as the rope appears as a snake, you have emotions attached to it. But actually, the snake is not being removed. You're not killing the snake. You're not merging the snake or dissolving the snake. You are removing the false knowledge that the rope was appearing as a snake. Once you
mhm,
can see the rope for what it is,
mhm,
the
mhm.
fear of the snake goes away.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I have a
Very,
question.
very subtle. But yes, Anil, go ahead.
So you go to buy a cup of coffee and you give the cashier $20. The coffee was for $5 and he gives you $5 back. He thought it was a $10 bill and you gave him $20 bill. What the functional entity should do?
What it is supposed to do.
You tell me what is
No.
the what
In your
in
example, what is the functional entity supposed to do? If
the
you as a functional entity gave $20 and you got back only
$5?
half your change, right? Or you only got $5 instead of getting 15, functional entity would ask for the balance 10.
Correct. Right?
Yeah.
So the difference is if you are actually dwelling in the self, if you are actually at a stage of calm and stillness stage, and you see this as a functional entity, the way you will behave and your demeanor would be very different. You will not be upset. You will not be yelling. You still will be asking for $10, but your whole demeanor and the way you talk to the cashier would change. That is the benefit of understanding the difference between the functional entity and who you truly are, because the cashier is also the same as you are.
Correct.
Correct? So
Correct.
that, I think, is the practical benefit of understanding the knowledge part of it, the difference between who you truly are and its difference from the functional entity. So you look from that base. Now the whole thing changes the way you behave in the world. That is the practical benefit of this
Yeah.
knowledge.
Now, what happens until here is that most people, because they've not practiced and experienced that calmness. See, one is to say that there is a calmness, and one is to be in the calmness. The difference between intellectually understanding that there is something in me which is calm and will remain calm in a situation does not happen, because if you only intellectually understand it, you forget that, and in that moment you still react. Till you don't practice these things and actually are calm always, then the outside event does not have any effect on you. So what you're saying is correct from an intellectual perspective, where the people don't see it and hence come back and say, but I didn't see it, I had this problem and I reacted in the same way as I always do, is because you are not calm. You only believe that there is something called calmness, but you're not actually calm.
No, if you're not calm, you will get upset.
Yeah, you
If you
do.
actually,
Which is
yeah,
which
if,
is what
yeah.
most people, they understand this, but still people go there, and if they get that $10 less, they're probably either rude to the fellow, or and if he says sorry, but sir, you made a mistake, you only gave me 10. Now starts the whole argument, right? How they react, how they call the manager, this is this and this is that, right? And means I see it on a daily basis. I see people, I don't want to name anybody, but I've seen how people, after having long sessions, have actually, have had very heated and angry arguments about actually, honestly, nothing. It was irrelevant, just because both had to prove a point.
So, so I like actually Anil's example, and uh, and I like that, the demeanor, how the calmness, if you have inner calmness and you believe in that, and how the demeanor will be changed, and how you react to that issue, you would change. And as you said, uh, Ashish, the cashier is going to argue, and how you react to it. So all that's great and good, and I agree with it, and I think it's a fantastic uh, state of being to be in. But I just want to push a little bit, so I understand it. So isn't so now we are talking about how you react, how you have, your demeanor is calm and you are good. Is the uh, uh, isn't there a point where a person get upset? I mean, isn't the feeling of getting upset or angry, or those negative feelings, those negative reactions, aren't they also part of human existence? Isn't that, are
So
we
they are
saying that
part
always?
of, yeah, they are part of the dream drama.
I'm sorry,
They are part of the dream drama, right? If at a
the dream
given
what?
point of the dream drama, the play of life, right? The drama
Mhm.
that's going on today, the dream, right?
Yes.
We're all within this dream, as identified. As long as we're identified with the dream, we appear to be in the dream. We are identified with our functional entities, so we are in this dream drama.
And if I can add
Yes.
one thing here, Amen, if you actually are at the baseline, the real you, which is calm and still, by definition, it is always Sat Chit Anand. You're always in that blissful state. That is what the original state is. Everything else, except for that one emotion of peacefulness and happiness, that is the nature of all of us at the baseline. The functional entity has all kinds of things, as Ashish is saying, right? But if you really want to know whether positive and negative emotions are part or a mix of the human being, that is actually true for a functional entity. But for the true entity who you truly are, the self, there is only one state, which is peaceful and blissful.
There's one small question doubt is coming. Ultimate goal is calmness and stillness. That is in the silence, is a part of the silence. All this identification, non-identification, or attachment, non-attachment, all are part of the intellect. In So that means removal of intellect is what is the goal? Our intellect is a temporary phenomena, has to be there during a dream. Then process of elimination of the dream is is an activity of intellect taking out. Intellect itself is not permanent in nature.
That's
Is
correct.
that
So correct. So the ultimate goal is the removal of the false knowledge that there is something called intellect and mind and individuality. So in the example of the snake and the rope, the ultimate goal is to realize that the rope is a rope.
so? Okay, the intellect itself is not permanent,
It's a limited tool.
and also it is continuously, perpetually changing.
That's correct.
And since it's changing, it may not be true also at any given time.
That's correct. So the
Oh
truth
my
cannot
God.
change, right? That's
Yeah.
when we say the
But,
truth is
but
non-dual.
it is kind of a continuous process of changing, and which is not even different time, different moment. It appears to be different.
Correct. It's fictional. The whole the concept of the opposing force
Mm.
is meant for changing, to keep
This
your self or the pure consciousness,
so
identified with the
uh,
change. That's
can I take it as it's a transformative element, which is itself is may not exist at extreme end of these things, but
doesn't it doesn't exist. It's
but
only a
it
false notion that it exists, because your silence and stillness,
uh,
which is what Anil was talking about, what we
uh-huh,
call Satchit Anand, which is nothing but existence or being, consciousness,
uh-huh.
bliss, right? That's what it
Oh
means, Satchit Anand.
yeah,
So
yeah, you are right.
that does not change, no matter what happens on
Mhm.
the top.
So that's why our intellect, which is part of the dream, we are changing every time. What was there 1,000 years back is not true. A few hundred years back, that is not true today. What we are saying today, it may not be true after another
Correct.
100 years later.
Correct. Forget what you know now does not, it changes the next moment.
Yes. Oh, I
So
was okay.
but the silence does not change.
Yes.
What Anil is saying, the
Uh-huh.
natural
Uh-huh.
original nature of silence, which is blissful, or that original inherent nature
But
does not change.
yeah, I think that makes sense. But in the Sat Chit Anand, actually Sat is a is more powerful than Anand. Anand itself is
Sat is the only thing.
yeah,
Eventually, even Anand and Chit
yeah.
are also,
Goes away, I think.
yes, Sat, which is called truth,
Yeah.
but
And
that without Chit and Anand is non-definable, which is why
no,
they use Chit and Anand to
together.
define it in
And,
words.
and that we can see only in the stillness stage or
That's it.
environment of
That's it. That's it.
silence.
That's it.
Silence.
There's no way. There
Yeah.
are no words to describe Sat, because
Okay.
Sat is you.
Yeah.
You are Sat. Everything else
Yeah. Okay.
after Sat is not
Okay.
there.
We need a lot of homework or maybe thinking on these lines. I think we come to the to a stage to realize it. Awakening is understanding all this mechanism, right? Itself is a this
That's
thing.
it. So awakening is nothing but to wake up
And
from the fiction.
go around the, yeah.
Go around, but
Mhm.
you have to go around.
Ground in a circle.
Come to the realization that you didn't have to go around, because
Yeah.
you already
So,
are what you
yes.
were,
Yes.
you will always be.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It is in a circle completely. One
Circular.
full circle.
Circle.
That's beautiful.
Okay. I think we are at 11:34, so I think we'll close it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Guruji. I want to ask one
One more thing.
detail.
Okay.
It's not a question for now, but then it's a request that sometimes, like, I want us to talk about life and death and where do
Okay.
we go after death. And honestly speaking, it really frightens that I would, because I am like, as far as I'm concerned, I am really attached with myself. Oh, after, you understand, you intellectualize again, then you feel, oh my God, how can I die? I am
So
at that
should
stage.
we so should
It
we take
frightens me.
so should we take the next topic as death
Yes,
and
please.
understanding death?
Yes.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So we will,
Appreciate.
next 2 weeks, in the satsang session, we will discuss about death, understanding death, what it is, and who is it that is actually dying.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's good.
So that we can be prepared for death.
Yes.
We
Okay. All right.
don't fear death.
Yeah. Okay. All
So
right.
that will be
Sounds
on July 4th, right? Yes,
so July
July
4th
5th,
is the,
July 6th, actually. Sorry,
yes. What is
July.
Sunday? So next Sunday is 29th, 30th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, July 6th.
July 6th. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
All right.
much. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Ash.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day. Take care. Bye.
Bye.